Hey guys, Thomas Genie here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie Gran Turismo. If you end up enjoying this full movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second and third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth to my Discord server. You can join, collab, and chill, and do all that cool stuff. And with all that out of the way, let's get into the movie, Gran Turismo. So, this movie completely came out of nowhere, if I'm being completely honest. I have seen zero trailers for this movie, so I had no idea, based off of what you can see at the top of this trailer poster, that this is actually based on a true story. I had zero context for that, or that this was even being made. So, count me surprised, I guess. Anyway, the movie is, well, as you can see, not only based on a true story, but also simultaneously doubles up as sort of like a video game movie in a double entendre sort of way. So I think that's a first. Maybe. I could be wrong, but I think this is the first time that's happened. I don't know. Anyway, point being, I don't know a lot about the games of Gran Turismo. I think I've played it once, like one of the earlier ones, way back in the day. And I've never really been up in the racing department of racing games, so consider that this wasn't even something that was ever up my alley to begin with. I just played other video games, more action-oriented games, more tendedly than racing ones, typically. So, yeah, that's just, so you know my state of mind going into this. So consider me surprised when this movie, kind of went a little, it did a little bit more than I was expecting it to. I'll leave it at that as we progress through the story and plot and all of that good stuff. Because I don't know how much of this, again, it's based on a true story, which just means, it actually happened, but they probably dramatized some of the elements, very likely. So who's to say, like, what parts were, given that little extra, like, nudge of, like, drama or whatever else, Who knows? So anyways, the movie starts off with, cars revving up. And we were given some notes at the beginning of the movie of how someone, I forget the name of the creator of Gran Turismo in the context of this movie, but he was talking about how he wanted to give access to driving to essentially more people. Is essentially what this little opening little text crawl was referring to. Nonetheless, we cut to the UK, and we cut to a racing gamer named Yin or Jin. I forget how they pronounce it in the movie exactly. But nonetheless, the dad gives me the dad character gives me my mom vibes every time I'm reviewing something and she makes her way down to where I'm recording of, you need to leave sooner or later, you need to, get out and do stuff. I know that feeling all too well. So I was already connecting to the character on a very biased level. So I knew that, I know that feeling all too well. I wish I had more support in real, in the real YouTube sphere to allow such, financial support so that hopefully I could be even more independent than I currently am now, which is not a lot. Anyway, we cut to Japan, where we meet meet up with Danny, who's going to Nissan to do his promotion. He's played by Orlando Bloom, who I have not seen done acting stuff since, like, the Pirates saga. So, I've not seen Orlando Bloom in quite a while. And I gotta say, I think he's gotten a little bit better at acting. I was a little surprised here by his character. So he's essentially playing this, like, marketing guy, essentially, named Danny. So he is the one who's offering this contest to the video game players to drive in a real vehicle and have them win. And if they do that, that will then inspire, as he puts it, 80,000, or 80 million, rather, players around the world to inspire them to race. So, yeah, that was sort of his whole opening spiel. Meanwhile, we cut back to the UK, and we meet with Kappa. And Danny talks with him, too. But we need to we get more context of the rest of the main character's family here. Seeing the family get together, he has a brother, a mother, and the father who I was already referring to. And during this little convo, the son talks about he actually does enjoy vehicles very much so. A lot so much that he wants to do it for his work. So yeah, I wish I had that type of confidence to be like, I think I've offhandedly mentioned what I do to both of my parents at one point or another, at least my dad in particular, more so than my mom, but point being is that I, again, wish that I had had more support than just the offhanded once in a while we get lucky and have enough money to support me sort of way support. That'd be so greatly appreciated. But nonetheless, he gets told that, one person gets told anyway that he needs to work on driving, essentially. And what is set up next is like this prompt by Danny, like this video prompt, which is like inviting people to this GT Academy, Gran Turismo Academy. And he's called to come in, the main character is, so he shows up eventually, almost late. Here, during the race, he talks about how the players typically follow these particular lines to sort of keep on a track in particular. And when he doesn't, he's able to sort of either outbound and curve in front of them, or in-curve and curve in front of them. This is what allows him to start to work his way towards the front and win. So when he's looking at his phone or computer on his own time, his brother comes in thinking he's looking at porn. That actually does happen in the movie, just reporting. But anyway, he's like talking. They're like talking to each other about like this party or something, and he has a crush on this other character that we're about to meet. So they drive off to go to this party. During which he meets his crush, and they're like talking, and like the party's going on, and they're just chilling. And the party's after the excuse me. And after said party, as they're driving their way back, they get the police on them. I forget if they were driving too fast or just like if the cops were just like paroling in general, but point being is that he does not want to miss an opportunity to actually get to this academy. So he drives off, and this is where it sort of like plays like illuminating to the video game, where it like shows like the achievements like as if you were playing the game, as he's like losing the pursuit of the police. I guess that's like a game mode in the game. Again, not particularly memorable of any of the GT or Gran Turismo game modes, so I'm just assuming that that's one of them. So anyways, so he gets like called in by his dad to go to his work, his dad's work, excuse me, and the dad says is that if you don't like shape up, he'll end up working the train line like his father does. I mean, hey, if it pays more than a YouTuber, I mean, shit, right? Especially with a YouTuber with only one Patreon supporter. I don't know, I feel like I'd take up that opportunity, at least for the time being. You know, so you get that, get a little bit more of that cash flow, if you know what I mean. And he says that there's no future in racing, unfortunately. The dad still has his doubts. So anyways, Jan is what I wrote in my notes in terms of the main character's name, just so that we're clear. So he wins the sim race anyway, and he shows a picture of him when he was a kid in front of a car. And this was very illuminating in that he tells his father in that very moment was the moment he had decided that he wanted to be a driver. And once again, this is a very relatable moment to me. Well, I didn't tell my parents about it, but they eventually found out regardless. During school, just to offhanded, sidetrack of real life events and me, during school, we were given in the writing classes, we were given these little blue mini thin booklets, and we were just told to write about whatever we wanted to. And the moment I was given that little blue book and told that I could just write whatever, I was obsessed with writing. That was it. That was what set me off. Even as a kid, I knew what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and it's definitely something that can hit the core of someone really, really young, is that I really am in the disparaging or not anti-disparaging thing of message about certain people being like, oh, kids are too stupid and they don't understand anything. It's there are some people that clearly do not give kids enough credit. Kids sometimes find out what they want to do with the rest of their lives, and sometimes, very rarely, so they get to pursue their dreams. And I think it's a parent's, responsibility and encouragement to learn what that is and help those kids achieve those dreams for other parents. And then in this case, it's, the father does eventually come through to that perspective, but it does take a little bit of convincing. Nonetheless, Jack, who is our engineer of our trio, the guy on the right side of the poster, played by Mr. Harbour of fame of oh god, what's the series called? Oh god, I'm blanking on the supernatural D&D game now. Holy god. Yeah, you gotta shake my head and focus on this movie. Anyway, point being is that he is essentially there, or he tells the crew of the other winners across the other areas that he's essentially there to show them that they can't do it, that they're not good enough, that to transfer over from a video game to a real-life car is a lot above their, level of capacity. And we got a lot of montage in this sequence of them doing interviews, and we see that our main character is like a little, on the wonky side on that, and we see that Danny is like, ooh, I'm not sure about that, Unfortunately, that sort of showmanship is a part of being in the limelight. So yeah, anyway, the eliminations start to begin. So Jack shows how that this course is quite intense. And during this little montage, or near the end of it, we get in a big mistake, where Yan is trying to brake, because he's currently in the car with Yan, the main character. And Yan tells him, Jack, that the brakes were glazed, as he puts it. I'm guessing, that is a reference, because I don't know I know jack shit about cars myself, so I'm assuming that means when he puts his foot on the brake, it stalls out or something or other along those lines. I'm assuming that's something along the lines of what that means. And it ends out when that was tested for his vehicle, he ended up being right about it. In which case, that allows him to make it to the final 5 of the lasting competitors that are remaining. So we get him listening to some Kenny G, and during the next race, he gets placed 3rd, which is enough to make podium in any race. I would know, I won 3rd place as a award-winning writer at some point in my, setting up to be a writer. So again, connecting to this person on a character, and perhaps if the character or the real-life person actually did that, also relating to that as well. Nonetheless, Danny kind of tries to pull back for a little bit here, saying that he's still not media ready, and he's fighting Jack on who, the guy who's really close to him in terms of beating him, Yan that being, but Yan is still named the victorious one at the end of this little debacle. Thus, Jack tells him that once he is, that he's won. So he calls his mom to tell him the news, and this is where Jack tells him that everyone in the professional league will hate him. That transfer, sort of like the new student in a new school sort of vibe, I guess, is what they're going for here, or what he's going for here anyway. So we cut to Australia or Austria. I forget if they specified which. Anyway, Jan is interrupted by Jack, and he has a little joke moment here where he says, since no one thinks that they can do it, that the expectations are actually really low. So he's like, oh. Anyway, the experts begin their race. He fuels up, and He starts off in like rank 20th. However, as he's moving up, he gets hit from behind at some point in the movie and ends up, unfortunately, losing his place by a large margin. Sorry for the cut. Anyway, as I was saying, he ends up in 27th place. But don't fret, he has a number of races to essentially try to get close enough to get his license, which is what this whole segment is about. We see him suffer through a little other montage where we see him get into 23rd, 18th, 8th. We see him getting closer and closer, as a montage typically does. We see him even get a does not finish during this montage. So we cut to his last chance in Dubois. And he dips out of the box. And he gets into a position, I believe he's in 3rd at this point, or 4th, whatever position he needed to get to, essentially. And it was his job from this to the end of the race to essentially hold the line of his position. And he does so. So he gets his license. So we see Yan dine with, I keep putting in my notes the engineer, but I know that's meant to be Jake. Anyway, point being, Dan gives him a little gift, and he gets a little tease to bring his girlfriend along. And we get a little moment where he, Yan, gets to meet the creator of this whole, system, essentially. So that's really cool. I got, again, connecting, as a YouTuber, I went to Rhode Island Comic-Con before, and I got to meet quite a few big celebrities, some YouTubers, indeed. One of them being the nostalgia critic of Once Upon a Time, a while back ago at this point. And to think, at that point in time, I had asked him, I literally did it, I did the whole thing. I was super nervous at the time. This is when back when I was way more naive than I used to be. I was like, hey, you want to collaborate one day? That, obviously, nothing has ever come of that, so you know how that went. It went nowhere. So we cut to them, the two of them. He does end up bringing his girlfriend to the city. They get to go to this little party. They dance, they kiss, they have a good time. It's all great. We cut to Germany as their parents are watching on, so you know that the drama is about to hit maximum velocity. And indeed, it does so, because during this particular race, he gets in a massive crash. And it's like during this curve lump. And the race, obviously the people there have to, some of them have to rush over as fast as conceivably possible, get there via helicopter. And as he is brought into the hospital, I must say, the performance this actor gives is absolutely phenomenal. And I was absolutely taken away. Again, this movie surpassing my expectations at this point, because I thought this was just going to be mostly racing, but holy moly, does this young actor just absolutely bring it here. I'm not sure if I've seen this actor anywhere else, not that I'm familiar with anyway. Hold Hold on, I lost my place in my notes real quick. Just give me a second here. Even more so, he feels guilty because apparently during his accident someone in the audience actually got killed. Again, I'm not sure if this was dramatized or based on something that actually happened to the real person. Again, I'm not sure, but regardless, I'm here to review the movie, and this is what happens in the movie. And again, I'm just going to say, for what it was worth, it was expertly well acted here. So, after a while, the mom visits, and then after some time after that, him and Jake, I keep wanting to call him the engineer, follow to where he himself had his own accident, and he talks about how his own accident made him quit, made him stop doing what he was doing. To relate to that, I once published my book, and I know this, or I actually did get in a real life accident, but that's like, that didn't stop me from like pursuing my passions per se, but it did take a lot of time out of me, after some physical therapy anyway. But point being is that I wrote a book, I published it, and I didn't know quite how to promote it back in the day. This is before I even knew what Twitter was, by the way. So I didn't know how to promote my book via Twitter. I didn't know how to promote my book that well on YouTube. I tried to do the best of my ability with the amount of subscribers I had at the time, which wasn't a lot. It was well beneath what I have now, which is still not a lot. I'm still a small YouTuber, relatively speaking, comparatively so. So after the publication of my 2 books, I kind of quit writing in the traditional sense, and I have stuck to doing movie reviews and Let's Plays to try to garner a real audience, garner real Patreon supporters, garner some money, that cash flow, maybe get back into the writing zone, republish a book, the first book, instead of guiding a D&D group through, a Dungeons and Dragons group through my first campaign, which is based off of my book, stuff like that. Anyway, he says how the main character chooses to respond to the crash is what will define him. If he ends now, that will define him, but if he keeps going, that too will be the thing that actually defines him. So that is the speaking of the momentum, still doing the YouTube videos, still keeping up that grind, never giving up, never giving in. The very reason I'm making this video is to never give up, never give in, even driving myself into insanity, to the literal definition of it, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I'm expecting a different result, and I'm just pushing and pushing the boundaries of what, I can review, providing any nuanced discussion and review, try to garner, again, get that audience. So I know all about that. But as we now learn our final race, as he recoups from this ordeal, since he, our main character is obviously going to, we get 2 of his pre-additional sim racers from the era, since this next race is a 24-hour race, and that they must go through the race in these shifts, because, driving for long periods of time could probably cause some very bad moments. And indeed, it actually even rains out there at some point in the movie, so yikes, even more on top of that. But We get to see his dad visit him, and we get to see the dad have a really heartwarming moment where he finally embraces his son and tells him to really go out there and give it. So, with that, with two of his fellow drivers from the sim racing, the race begins with him, and we see an early explosion, like an early crash, not dealing with him, but someone else. And that, like, kind of gets the main character all like, oh god, that's reminding me of the thing that happened to me, and he's all, like, worried about the guy, and like, the person, Jack has to, like, confront him and be like, hey, focus, because they have the radio little headpieces to tell them, like, what to do. So he plays him the music that he's been listening throughout the movie to get him to get his head back in the headspace that it needs to be in, as well as being told that the driver is fine. That combination of two things is what exactly what allows him to get back into it. Moving into the 9th place mark is when it actually does begin to rain, as I already previously mentioned. And we see the two other drivers at some point also make their way out throughout the race. But Jan is inevitably the one who has to eventually get back in at some point. Unfortunately, on his way out, the guys working on his car, like, lost some part for a fumble for quite a while, and he lost some places, and he has to make up for that. So he talks. So this is where, as he's moving back through it, it's sort of like a callback to the whole cutting in, like, in the swerving lines, as he's referring to earlier in the movie. So he does so, and manages to swivel his way all the way back up to 4th place by the final lap. And it just so happens that the final competitor that he's, like, tiptoeing, or, like, on even odds with, is his rival that has been, like, established throughout the majority of the movie. And he ends up surpassing his rival. And I think it was either he wins 3rd or 1st. I forget which place he was, but it's podium worthy is essentially the point of the gist of the movie, is that he still wins in that regard. And to show that it was based on true events, it actually shows side-by-side pictures of the stuff that happens in the movie and the real people that were associated, the real racer. And apparently the real racer was a stunt double, apparently, according to the movie. So that's so cool. And it talks about how he's won over 200, or raced 200 races, and how this very, this idea, this concept has very much blown up successfully since this was initially launched as a premise. And that was Gran Turismo, and goodness gracious, was I blown away by this movie, as I stated out earlier, far surpassing my expectations, as a simultaneous video game movie, but also a movie based on true events. You know, I don't mind the dramatization. I get that movies have to do that to build that tension, and that allowed for some of the strongest character moments to be achieved in terms of acting, and all across the board of our actors here. So I'm all on board for when that's the case. This is the definitely movie. Even though I'm not a racer, enthusiast by the end of it, I'm still in my own lane, being like, I can still do it, god damn it. Like, after a movie like this, this is a feel-good movie. On top of it all, I'm going to give this movie a surprising score, too. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I think this is actually one of the best video game movies we have out here, competing with some of the other best video game movies out there, like from your Sonic the Hedgehogs, 1 and 2. One more than 2, because I feel like 2 slipped a little bit there. Other good video game movies, I would still say Silent Hill's a good one. I know there's been some criticisms of that one in particular. I thoroughly enjoyed Silent Hill myself. I'm trying to think of other good video game movies as well. I know it's still a struggle. There's all the animated Resident Evil movies. If you have not seen any of those, I would highly recommend the latest one, Dead Island. There was the Mortal Kombat movie with Scorpion. I think it was called Scorpion's Tale, like a pun like that, or Scorpion's Legend or something like that. Mortal Kombat Scorpion's something. That one was really, really good. There's the Bayonetta movie based off the video game Bayonetta. There's quite a few really, really, really good video game movies, and I think this has landed among those as a fantastic video game movie, as well as topping on top of that being also, again, based on a true story about real video gamers, entering the racing space, and gaining that access and gaining that approval in real life. So that just adds that extra little bit of like, yeah, video gamers rise up kind of attitude. That's so cool. I love it. I wish there was way more of this going on in other realms of like how we inspire people to do other things. I wish there was a lot more of this, because this is sorely lacking, I feel like, in the real life experience recently, outside of where I live, and even where I live, there's so much to be desired. If you've ever heard a video of me talking about my high school experience, which I've probably briefly mentioned in one other review, which was the cloning Tyrone one, is the one I explicitly mentioned in my high school story. But, I can make whole videos about my past, but yeah, point being, fantastic movie, really well appreciated, really well enjoyed, and that is my full review of Gran Turismo. If you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers fulfill their dreams. Give them their own tab so that they can be discovered like this racer was. Let's do it. Fuck it. If you made it this far, let's finally make some noise. Let's actually make a difference, And you can also feel free to join my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me directly. I could definitely use a lot more of those. That will help me continue to make videos, help support me at the home life that is on the constant struggle. You can even join my Discord, where you can join other like-minded YouTubers and content, shill your own stuff for free. So yeah, a lot of good stuff. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.